For a man living his American dream, who has everything he wants and can get anything he desires, Patrick Bateman's actions suggest that he has nothing else to lose. He finds no coherent meaning in his life as he drifts through his daily life, mundane activities, and lives off a high of spontaneous violence. Priceless, dare I say. Written by Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho follows the life of a rich investment banker in New York City who leads his double life as a serial killer in the 80s. Each chapter has its own plot, describing the events that Bateman goes through every day, some a normal workday, some violent killing in the alleyway, and some a one-night stand with two other women. Is infidelity the answer to his questions? Is his platinum American Express card the answer to his questions? Is a psychotic rampage the answer to his questions? This is a look into Patrick Bateman's trope in American Psycho as we delve into the deathlessness of materialism and the thrill of searching for meaning in life by choosing violence, specifically through the lens of the wealth of goods and the objectification of women.
When taking a look at how he lives, Bretman lives a very repetitive day-to-day life, working a 9-to-5 job, earning mad money to afford his expensive designer clothes, American Gardens building apartments, and eats out with his finance bros every so often, who lead pretty much the same lifestyle. It's almost like he doesn't have a real personality, but a stubbly striped double-breasted wool suit by Canel Milano and a cotton shirt by Bill Blass, and a mini Jen plaid woven silk tied by Bill Blass' signature, skincare products, and an avid obsession with Patty Winter's show to compensate for the hollowness within him. They're only focused on the monetary goods and that showcase their wealth to fit in as much as possible while still being alienated in such a desolate world. He and his friends are part of what you would call a yippie culture, which is defined as basically everything I just described: a young person with a well-paid job and a fashionable lifestyle short of a young urban professional. A prime example of this is in the chapter Harry's, where Bretman pries information out of Marcus Helberstam about Paul Owens Fisher bank account. This is an instant where someone else has someone that he doesn't have, brewing a sense of jealousy and entitlement so much that he killed Paul Owen in his own apartment, or maybe it was a hallucination, who knows, to regain a sense of control. Another instance is when Patrick taunted Al, a homeless guy on the street asking for money, and just brutally murdered the dude. I could go on and on about his killings, but that's for later. This display of superficial materialism says a lot about his estranged character. I came across a very interesting Reddit post, as anyone who's chronically online would, that pinpointed what I said. It hyperlinks to a YouTube video, basically saying the same thing that the post said. Perfectly normal. The video starts when trauma occurs within attachment relationships, especially early ones. The conscious system makes a devastating choice: hide the authentic self that wasn't receiving attention or love, and create a new self designed specifically for belonging. This mask needs a constant maintenance, generating chronic anxiety. Patrick Bateman illustrates these mechanisms. His morning routine isn't vanity, it's identity construction. His violence isn't random, it's a desperate attempt to achieve homeostasis through control when belonging falls. Now, to further explain this, behind the article titled Materialism Psychology by Vox, materialistic values are associated with living one's life in ways that do a relatively poor job of satisfying psychological needs to feel free, competent, or connect to other people. When people do not have their needs well satisfied, they report lower levels of well-being and happiness, as well as more distrust.
So this leads to our next topic of the constant objectification of women. To soothe his anxiety, he turns the woman to seize control of the situation, treating like something he owns, and we can draw that conclusion in the way he treats Evelyn. When I first started reading this book, I had hoped that this would be a healthy, long-lasting relationship. Anywho, he sleeps around a lot and all his friends are the same way. This man is absolutely insufferable as the book progresses. He just becomes more and more boo. Which is everything: his mentality, his actions, and his words. The way he describes women and the way he treats women simply shows that he has no respect for them as people, and he really views them as toys to be thrown around in bed. He grows increasingly anxious about everyday life, yet he hardly fears any consequences of his actions. And this is demonstrated through his affair with Courtney. It is a prime example of his mistreatment towards women, as if cheating on his fiancée isn't already enough. In the chapter titled Deck Chairs, where he engages in intercourse with Courtney after taking out for a dinner date, Courtney was visibly intoxicated after the day, and Bateman took advantage of that. When Courtney started to panic, Bateman starts lecturing her and basically yelled at her, saying that you're being a goddamn child, showing absolutely no care for her. He soothes his constant anxious state by turning to women as a means to seize control. He embraces this power imbalance and dynamic to feel something in such a tasteless life. We really see his sadistic tendencies and superiority complex prevail. Women in his mind are simply just another category of product. Like a Rolex or a reservation at Dorsia, they exist for display and consumption. He doesn't talk to women. He selects them. He ranks them, he buys them, whether it's a sex worker, a model, a co-worker. Bateman's relationship with women is entirely transactional. As the novel progresses, his misogyny turns into brutality. He rapes, mutilates, and kills with increasing cruelty, often describing their bodies as objects being taken apart, as if he's trying to deconstruct their humanity and erase his own in the process, as if he had any in the first place.
Patrick Bateman's descent into violence is a reflection of his internal disintegration, where each act of murder becomes a futile attempt to feel something, anything. His violent outbursts begin with the women he seduces, growing more brutal with each encounter. His targets aren't limited to those he knows. They're also random people in the street, homeless men, co-workers, and strangers, demonstrating the unchecked and indiscriminative nature of his anger, driven by the ideology and desperate stabs into the void of his own emotional numbness. One of the earliest murders occurred in the chapter Killing Dog, where Bateman encounters a homeless man named Al and his dog. After mocking Al, Bateman stabs and crushes the dog's skull with his foot, stating, ugly, and then the F slur, Al. And girls, Bateman hires two prostitutes whom he refers to as Christy and Sabrina. After a night of doing drugs and sex, he subjects them to torture, including biting and mutilation. I'm holding a girl's head by the hair and slitting her throat with a knife. He says this with detachment in his voice. He also states, tomorrow Sabrina will have a limp, Christy will probably have a terrible black eye, and deep scratches across her buttocks. In Rat, Bateman tortures a woman by inserting a live rat into her body, showing the extent of his loss of empathy. In the chapter Tries to Cook and Eat a Girl, one of the most graphic chapters, Bateman dissembles a girl's body, which he had spent the night with, as he spends the next 15 minutes beside himself, pulling out a bushel rope of intestine, shoving it into his mouth, choking on it, and it feels moist in his mouth. Yeah. Yummy. In his increasingly frenzied spree of violence, he's constantly chasing a fleeting moment of authenticity. Each kill becomes more graphic, more theatrical in a sense. Not because he's becoming a better killer, but because he's spiraling further into despair, trying to reach a threshold where he might finally feel alive. This relentless pursuit of a sensation is what turns Bateman's materialism into sadism. In a world where his identity is defined by designer suits, exclusive restaurants, and business cards, violence becomes one of the things that isn't part of a script. It's raw and unbranded, a rebellion against the hollow consumerism that dominates his life. Bateman's violence is his twisted form of coping with the absurdity that he represents of a man surrounded by everything yet connected to nothing. He cannot fit into a world that prizes appearance over substance, so he lashes out, turning to reckless killing into his only authentic expression.
So I feel as though a lot of people miscategorize this book as the glorification of violence and subsequently the movie, but that's not relevant to this. Um, when really the desired message was to satirize materialistic obsession through the lens of Patrick Bateman using the full extent of his free will and giving as little of a crap as possible about the repercussions of his actions. He quite literally bought his way out of everything, and he could buy his way into anything. So therefore, it kind of takes away the fear or the regret of his choices. One thing I found really interesting, reflecting back to when I was nearing the conclusion of the book, my mindset eventually got so desensitized. I developed this pattern of wanting more of the extremes of what Bateman was doing as I was reading on in the book. It's gotten so grotesque and absolutely out of mind that in mild chapters with like very little climax, it makes me bored, and I wanted to seek more of a thrill in this book. So that parallel had me intrigued a bit. There's a lot more that we could have talked about in this book, and would have loved to speak more on, but we hope you enjoyed this analysis of the most insufferable fictional finance dude in Manhattan. Have a good day.
I had to kill a lot of people!